welcome to a first live in a bit of a while. So this week it's been kind of a bit of hectic trying to fit in any kind of filming or going live, so apologies for that. And I thought we could do a spot of scrapbooking or journaling. So what are you going to need? You're going to need a page or card that is going to be your base page that you're going to lay your layout onto. I have some coloured card, and then I have a paper pad. So if you want to work with some patterns, then you can use your pattern paper. But also at the back of these I do have some little cut apart sheets, and there was a question the other day about using pre-made decals, and I thought this was quite a good sheet to kind of approach for that particular question. So good morning, Linda, and hopefully Tracy will be joining us shortly. So first of all, don't forget to say hi in the comments, and I should be able to see those. And then if it's a question, I can always pop it on screen. So just let me know. I'm going to be working with an Artistic mat today. Hi, Mum. And let's go for our first sheet. So let's go for this one here. And I thought it'd be really fun to kind of do a nice decal edge and see how we can do that on the machine with the designs that are already in the machine. Hi, Tracy. Glad you found us okay. And I'm going to put my sheet up towards the top of my mat. Now this is a 12 by 12 sheet, so we can't use our usual trick of bringing it 1 inch in and 1 inch down to kind of get to everything. So what you want to bear in mind is if you want like this strip here, for instance, or this panel here, you're going to want to kind of trim your sheet down first so that you can actually get those pieces within the active area. So it's very slight, but there is a difference between the edge of the mat and where your machine can actually scan and trace up to. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind when you're working with 12 by 12 sheets in particular. Same if you are trying to do a like cut 12 by 12 background, you can't cut that outer edge on that 12 inch. So usually what you'll find, if somebody creates a 12 by 12 design, you end up scaling it down a little just to get it to fit onto your mat. Okay, and with that all said, we can pop our mat into our machine, not the other way around, and we can get that loaded. That is, if it doesn't go off to sleep on you. It's sat in the sun. It's not the best place for it. So let's go that one there. So I'm going to offer it up to my rollers and press the mat load button. Okay, now at this point we can't do a background scan until we have at least one shape on the mat. So I know that I have these nice long ribbon strips on the paper. So what I can do is actually go, right, I need something that's going to fill at least one of those strips. So let's go to pattern, to the borders, and we're going to scroll down to the one that looks a bit like a decal edge or torn edge. This one here. Okay. So again, we can see that although it's a 12-inch border, it's already done that size for us to say that's the maximum amount of shape that you can actually fit into that space. So we can go set to add that to the mat, but automatically we can see that that is the wrong way round. So I'm going to bring it down to the middle. I'm going to go to edit, object edit, rotate, and rotate that 90 degrees. Okay. Then we can move that over to roughly where we think it's going to be needed. And then we can go OK and OK again. Now that we've got that shape on the mat, now we can do a background scan. So when we're okay, it's going to take us back to the Add Edit screen, and we can do our background scan. So this button just here. Hope you can see that okay. If not, I can put it up a little bit for the brightness. What do you think, Lou? Okay. So once we press that button, it's going to say, it's going to do a scan of the background. Press start to scan. Now I am using the Artistic Super Duo, so we can do that background scan without worrying about the mat falling out the back of the machine. And then we have our paper appear on our screen. Now, my strip isn't quite wide enough for that shape here. So if I select the shape, you can see that you've got that red bounding box, and we can see that is larger than our strip design on our paper. So if we go to Edit, Object Edit, Resize. Now, if we were to resize at the moment, it's going to resize that shape in proportion. So not only are we getting it thinner, it's going to go shorter. Not necessarily what I want, because we know we've got that full 12-inch to play with. So if we use the ratio button, which is like the double arrow one, and that's going to turn blue, then we can actually work with the height and width independently. So let's start with the width, and it's always going to resize from the center outwards. And I want to bring that right down within that peach area. So round about there. I'm going to go okay. And we might need to move it slightly. So if we go to the move screen, we can go to zoom, which is going to take it to 200%. Now we can go zoom again to 400 if you need to, but because our shape is quite big, on this one I'm just going to stay to 200. So I'm just going to move that shape across so that it's within that peach area. Okay, at this point we could go okay, and there's our first shape ready to go. But we've got lots of other shapes on that mat that we can play with. Now we could just cut out that strip and then go back through using direct cut, for instance, making sure that you use the colour option because we've got a really soft colour palette. But sometimes you want to be a little bit cleverer in terms of how you want to apply a design to a shape. So let's say we want to match that same decal edge. What we're going to want to do is actually duplicate it, and then we can create a box with it. So if we go OK, Object Edit, to number, which is the top middle, and we're going to increase that to 2. Whoa, not that many. 2, just the 2. And we're going to go OK. Now, because I'm going to scale this down, that's why I only need 1 extra copy. If you were doing a box where you needed it bigger and at the same size, then you could just go 4 and do it that way. But for this one, just need this one over here. So I'm going to go into size. Now, we could leave it so that we are doing it height by width, but just to kind of be a little bit quicker, what I'm going to do is actually scale it down. So let's go for this center little flower panel. I'm going to move that across to here. And now I'm going to just do the height, just to kind of pull it up a little. Okay. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go into Zoom and check that length. The reason being, if I duplicate this by 4 and I've got that size wrong, then I'm going to be kind of having to redo it that I don't need to. So I'm just going to scroll down the page so that I can see the entirety of that box. There we go. And I'm just going to move that so it's within that edge. Like so. Okay. So now I'm going to go OK. Object edit. And now I can go to number and go, I need 4 of them because we have 4 sides. Okay. Now, one of them is going to go over here. Then we're going to have 2 that rotate. So if we go to rotate, we can drag that down there. Change shape, rotate. And put that one up there. So you have something that looks like that. So we now have a box with a decorative edge, but at the moment we've got a hole in the middle. So you may want to keep that hole, or you might want to patch that up. So I'm going to show you patching it up. So I'm going to go OK, OK. I'm going to go to Zoom again because I want to check that I get all this positioning accurate, which is interesting at the moment because the sun is so bright. Not that I'm complaining. Don't really want the snow that's supposed to be going to be forecast next week. That can go away. But I'm going to nudge that down there. Nudge it in. And if we use this dark line on our panel as a kind of guide, then we should be pretty certain that we've got it in the centre. And scroll down more just to get down to this bottom one. And that one I'm just going to move down just a touch. Like so. We can go OK. Now we want to weld those together. So our little 3 square button here is how we select more than one shape. So if we go on there, you then have 2 options that are presented to you. You have a window select, which is the left hand one, and select all, which is the right hand one, or you can tap on screen to select multiple shapes. So because all the shapes we want are within a fixed space, we can go window select. You're going to get the 2 arrows, same as if you were doing like direct cut or something like that, and we can drag those in so that we just surround our frame. Now you want to have a little bit of space around your shapes so that you get them all selected. We're going to go OK. And let's go OK again. I'm going to go to Object Edit and we're going to weld those together. And then it's going to say, is it okay to weld these because I can't undo it? Yep, that's fine. That's exactly what I want it to do. So we've got this frame that we can then save for later. So I'm going to go OK. OK. And we're going to go to save. I'm going to type save to USB. It's going to give it like the next number in the sequence. So it's not going to give it a logical name. But you can correct that on a computer at a later point if you want to. So the reason I've saved that is if I want to come back to this frame that is welded, I'll have that there to come back to. So for this layer, I just want to keep it as one solid piece. So I'm going to go to Add, Pattern, Basic Shapes, Square. We can resize it in here if you want to, but I'm just going to go to Set. If it comes up saying there's not enough space on the map, go OK, let's drop it down. Size at this point isn't overly important because it's going to try and fit it along that top edge without overlapping any other shapes. But what we actually want to do is we want it to overlap so that we can weld. So let's go roughly in the centre here. I'm going to go to Edit, Object Edit, and Resize. Take that up. And you want to take it right into your frame. And go OK. Going to go to Move and just nudge. So the reason that we go to Move rather than trying to drag it around the screen is you could accidentally move the other shapes on the mat. So those arrow keys are really useful. So I'm going to go OK. Multi-select again. Window select. Take up that window. Go OK. OK. And back to Object Edit to weld. And again, it's going to give you a preview. Now, you want to check that there aren't any little tiny holes around that frame edge. If there are, you could weld it and then just do little patches over the top, or you can go cancel and just resize that square. So let's go OK. So finally, let's pull out a sentiment and let's go for Make a Wish, which is just down here. So I'm going to go OK, OK, add pattern. I'm going to go back to the border and let's find our little torn edge. And we know that we're going to need this much shorter, but width wise, or height in this case, is probably about right. So let's shrink that up. I'm just judging it roughly on the mat as to what size it is. Whoa, not that far. It's just slightly smaller than an inch. And it's about 1.5 inches that way. A little bit further. Okay, let's add that onto my mat. And as usual, it's coming horizontal and I need it vertical. So let's go Object Edit and rotate it. Okay. So I'm going to take this down to where my sentiment is. And now we can kind of see if we need to tweak any of those measurements. So let's go into Resize. And I'm going to shrink that width just a little, not that much, and shrink the height. Go OK. I'm going to go to Move. And that should be about right there. Okay, so let's go OK. Now, this is just pattern paper, so we can use our vinyl blade if you want to, particularly as we're working with that kind of torn edge. So we may get a few weird little details as we've kind of shrunk it and stretched it and all points in between. So I'm going to go OK. Let's just go to the zoom actually. Let's just have a look at that a bit closer. It's a little bit narrow, so I might just take that a little bit wider. So I'm going to go OK, Object Edit, Resize, little bit wider. Take it down as far as it will go. Pop the height up a little. We can always cut some more off, but we can't put it back on. Okay, let's give that a go and see what we get. So please select cut. Make sure that your half cut is off. I'm going to slow that speed down. Two should probably do it. It shouldn't be too intricate. And let's see how it goes. So while we're waiting for that, are there any questions? Oh, there we go. So if you have this and it's basically just snag the paper, first of all, lift your lever on the left hand side of the machine up to position 2. Go quick operating, so it should come back out then. Okay. Check the corner of your paper. It's usually your left corner will snag, but just stick that back down if need be, and then it should be okay to go again. So please select cut. Just going to remember the same settings, and away we go. Okay, so while that's doing that, I'm also thinking of doing some layers, so let's find some colours out. And good morning, Brian. Hope you're well. It is very sunny and very warm, especially over by the ScanNCut. So I am glowing today, would be my way of putting it. So I'm going to go for probably a bit peach, maybe a bit of the lilac would be quite nice, and maybe a bit pink. So all of these cards are single-sided colour, and I'm going to also go for a little bit of green. It's just finding the right shade of green. Let's go for that one. There we go. So the 2 packs are Forest Blooms and Fabulous Florals, both Paper Boutique. Forest Blooms you might struggle to get hold of. Fabulous Florals you should still be able to get, I believe. So yeah, so got my colour scheme, got my designs cutting. So let's pull in our paper. So what I'm thinking is we have our decorative strip that can come down here and will actually be trimmed off, so that we have that to fit our page. We're going to have our panel. Then I also want to do like a little photo frame as well. So that's going to be where our card comes in. So let's see how these cut. First of all, check that they have before taking it out of your machine. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now we can bring these in, and we can take off the paper that we haven't cut from yet, and we can save that for another project. Trim it with scissors or go back through the ScanNCut at a later point. So here's our strip, like so. We have our sentiment that I didn't do a bad job again in the middle, wasn't far off considering it's peach. So with lighter colour text on light colours, you can sometimes really struggle to line it up on your ScanNCut. So that's just something to bear in mind. And it's a really good demonstration of how that border is going to resize. So if we look at this one's almost at full size. We just tuck that in slightly, so these lines here aren't going to quite vary so much as what they do on the inbuilt pattern, whereas this one has the opposite. So we've shrunk it down this way but not shrunk it down much this way, so that means that your torn edge has much more of a torn effect. Okay, and our panel is somewhere in the middle. Okay, so we've saved this panel so we can use that for another element of the design, and that is going to be my photo frame. So let's put that one there. And then we can move on. So looking at my colour scheme, I think I'm going to go with that. See, lilac's going to go too matchy-matchy, I think. But we could go green, which I think would look quite good contrast. So yeah, go for that nice bright green. Now, as I'm just cutting shapes from this rather than trying to cut around something, I'm going to pop this straight up into that top left corner. And then we can go back to the machine. Okay, so we're going to go OK to finish that. And I'm going to go home to reset and go OK. We can load our mat. Like so. Why do I always do an amazing job of hiding my own pencil? There we go. So I'm going to go to retrieve data first. I'm going to go back to USB because that's where I saved it to. If we go zooming down to the bottom and up one or two, there we go. So there's our last counted file, and I'm going to add that back to my mat. Okay, so we now have our frame, but we've also got a border. We don't need that anymore, so we can just go to edit and bin it and go OK. Now our frame, because we've welded it, we can pop that up there like so, and we might want to scale that down in a bit for one object. So just in case, I'm going to make myself a copy. So just using that number to set it to 2, and I'm going to pop it down in that bottom right corner. So we know in that bottom right corner we've got next to no card, so we're not about to go and cut that one. So it's going to kind of alert us to the fact that you've got this extra shape on the mat that we need to do something with. Okay, so I want to create like a photo mount, but ideally I want that to have photo corners too. So if I go OK, add, there's a couple of ways that we could do this. So let's see if we can use one of the inbuilt ones. So let's go in here. I think it's in this one. Did I manage to get the wrong one? Yes, I did. Choice of 2. Just making sure it's not just me. It's not the easiest screen to see in blazing sun. I want. I know it's got it. I'm just not seeing it. There are some little photo corner pieces. Why can't I see it? Am I being totally dense today? Probably. Yeah, being totally dense. Oh well. So you could use ARK034 and do it that way, so that you actually have a hole in the center of your photo mount. But what I want to do is go the other way and actually have it so that the photo mount is solid, but has like the little slits for your corners. So there is a design on the machine that has the slits in for the corners. I haven't got my black folder to hand, but I will pop up a code later for you that tells you where to find it, because I am being dense today. But instead, let's do it the other way then. We can do this more than one way. So I'm going to go back and let's get my square. We'll do it the manual way. So we're going to set that onto our mat, over the top. Let's resize it if we need to. So let's go to edit, object edit, resize. Let's make that a little bit bigger. I will move it in a minute as well. I'm just going to make it a little bit taller than it is wide, just to make life a little easier. Let's go to move. And down. And across. I'm going to go OK. And let's do the multi-select window. Take it up. OK. OK. Object edit and weld it. So it's all into one. Go OK. Now, if you were using that other design, you'd be done at the moment. So now what I'm going to do is just add those corners in. So I'm going to go OK. OK. Add pattern. Border. Down to the bottom and up a couple. So then we have like our single line lines in the borders, and they're really useful for doing things like this, where you want just like an open line rather than having a shape. So things like if you want to put a slot in the shape, if you want to make a pocket, these are where they kind of really come into play. So let's go up to BOB001, and all the machines have this design. So it doesn't matter what model you have, can be a CM, can be SDX, they all have that. So it's just a case of just scrolling through to find it. You're going to tap on it, and we know that we don't need it this big. In actual fact, you probably only need it to be about 1/2 inch. So we're going to take our width control and we're going to set that down to 1/2 inch. Okay, and I want 2. Okay, and I'm going to set that onto my mat. So with our 2 objects on our mat, what we actually want to do is have them appear kind of parallel to each other rather than side by side. Quickest way to do that is going to be if we go edit, object edit, rotate. We're going to rotate the last line 90 degrees, then we're going to try and click on the next line and do that one. Okay, I'm going to go OK at this point, and OK again, and OK again. So back at the add edit screen, and this is where I hope that my pattern interval is down at 1. Yay! So we can check that in the settings just here. So when our pattern interval is at 1, it's the closest it can put shapes together. So if I go OK, and now I tell it to go into space saving, and I say just do it just normally, it's going to budge everything up together, but it's also going to make it so that our two lines are level and together, so that we know that they have a set space between them. So this is a really quick way of doing like alignment with shapes. So that patterning tool is actually a really useful feature. We can go OK. Now that we know that those are together, we can go to Edit, Object Edit, and because we want to put this into a corner, we're going to need to alter the height of one of those elements. Okay, so let's take this down to about 1/4 inch, like so. So now we have one line that is 1/2 inch, one line that is 1/4 inch. We're going to go OK. We're going to go to multi-select. Now I could tap that second line and hopefully not move it, but why do that when we can actually go and instead have the machine do the work and be sensible. So let's shrink that selection up and we're going to go OK. It is only going to select what is entirely within that box. So now both lines are selected. We can go to Object Edit and we can group them together. So they're now locked as such. Now, at this point, you have a decision to make. Are those two lines close enough together for what you want it to do? So if you want to put them closer together or spread them out, you can do it while they're grouped, just using that resize command. So what you want to make sure is that you use that little ratio button, little joyful thing that it is to help out, and then we can reduce our width. And it's going to move those lines closer together. So if you think about it, those paths are just literally a straight line. So it's not going to affect the design so long as those lines are literally straight up, straight down. And we can go OK. Once you have those lines where you want them, in terms of their distance, we can then rotate them. So we want to rotate it 45 degrees because we want it to go and hold a corner. So you're going to tap your 10 degrees 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to then do your 1 degree 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to tell you at the top here how far you've got. So if you lose track, you're all right. It's going to tell you. So that has now twisted that line onto the 45 degree. We can go OK. And we want 2 of those. So we're going to go to number and say 2. So now we've got 2 corners that are in the same direction, if that makes sense. So we need to turn that second copy around 180. So we're going to go 90, 180. So now they're facing opposite corners. We can go OK. Now we just kind of need to position them. So I'm going to take one shape down here, one shape up here, so that within our frame. And I'm not that bothered about setting it to a particular distance. I just want to get it onto that shape, because then I can go OK, go into zoom, and then I can use those arrow keys to move that around. I'm not even bothered at the moment that the fact that it won't cut out where it currently is. It's all about that relative position to that box. So let's move that into that corner. And we can take that one. And you just want it to be into the relative position. So if we look at the gap that we've left here, to the gap that we've left down there, Just going to move that in and across a little bit just to match. Okay, so if I tap off that, if it'll let me, let's go on to this one here. You should have something that looks like that. So you've got 2 lines at the top, 2 lines at the opposite corner. And we can go OK. I'm going to go back to multi-select. I'm going to tap onto the mat. That deselects everything. I'm going to go to that window select, draw that top one in. So it's just around the outside of that second panel with our lines. Go OK. OK. Object edit. And we can group. So that now locks that relationship again. Now you can group within a group within a group, and that's it. So you've got 3 levels of grouping. So that's just something to bear in mind, that you do have that kind of stop point. The way to get around that is you then start ungrouping things at the lower end of the hierarchy. So we have our little photo panel. Let's move that frame down there for a second and pop that up into that top left. Now, with this one here, I'm going to just shrink that down slightly. And pop that there. And that should have plenty of material to cut that with. So I'm going to go OK. OK, OK, OK. Now, I am working on card this time rather than paper, so I am going to swap to the other blade. So we're going to go to cut. Let's start and see how we go. So all of this is going to have that same torn edge effect, apart from where we've done those little photo corners. So any questions on what I've done so far? So let's pull my page back in. And I want to put my strip down here. Panel is probably going to come down here. Photo panel is going to go up there. And then I have a little hollow frame that I can use as background detail. And then we have our little Make-A-Wish that's probably going to end up there. So we can put washi if you need to reinforce your binding. Just simply a case of finding one that matches your strip. Or if you want to cut another strip and do it that way, you can do. So that looks like that's cut okay. So let's pop that out. So we have our little photo corner. So if I just bend that, you can just about see. So the idea being, you can then just slot your little photo underneath here and back out the other side. If you find that your photo doesn't quite make it out the other side, don't worry about it. Okay, let's get our frame. like so. And we have our solid piece as well, so you can use that on another project. So let's see how this works out. That's going to go up there. So we've got a little bit of shuffling that we can do. We can put our photo on top, or if we make sure that we don't use any adhesive on this top left corner here of the panel, we'll still be able to slide that photo in after. So that's a way that we can put photos into our scrapbooks without having to use any adhesive straight on the photo, because over time adhesive, whether it's tape or wet glue, will age. So if it's doing that against your photo mount rather than against your photo, it's going to save your photo. And I'm just going to pop that one in the middle at the bottom, like so. That's going to give me a nice little layout. I might just trim off a strip just to go there. So I hope you've enjoyed that kind of look at how we can create our own photo panels within the machine itself. Obviously, once you move to Canvas Workspace, there's so much more that you can do. You can use that same technique that we did for the frame on the machine and still be able to put text in, so that you can actually weld that text to your frame. So that's just something to bear in mind. Whereas if you use like two squares overlapping, you can't use subtract. So that's one of the joys of actually creating that four sides of your frame. Should have said that earlier. So that's why I did it that way, so that we can actually have frames and things without necessarily worrying about this hole in the center. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any questions, put them in the chat now, and I will put the link, well, not the link, the code for the design for that little photo panel as well. But you can create them yourself. And then you can do fun things like decal edges, and if you want to use like the oh, what's it called, brick rack edging as well. Thank you, Linda. So because I've done this with all the decal edge, you could use any of the border designs and do that same technique. So don't think you're stuck with the kind of decal edge look. So I would love to see if you have a go with any machine. So it's not just the ScanNCut. So Brian, if you want to get involved and pop the Cricut equivalent up, that is absolutely fine. Mum will have to raid her dies. Or find the decorative scissors. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you very soon, hopefully next week. So do keep an eye out for the time that I will be going live. I will try and put reminders up and things, but do subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that will give you a little alert just before I go live, so long as my software doesn't do something daft like it did today and say that I was going live at 44 minutes past the hour for some random reason. But okay. Take care and bye for now.